all. We have quorum, and so this meeting is now back to order, starting with the acknowledgement that while in Ottawa, we meet on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin people, but throughout the grid, you'll see people spread across First Nations territories virtually all across the country. Here in Hamilton, East Stony Creek, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chonantan First Nations are the traditional holders of these lands. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on October 27th, 2020, the committee is continuing its study of food security in northern communities. To ensure an orderly meeting, remember to speak and listen in the official language of your choice, which is found on the interpretation icon, the bottom center of your screen. If you select interpretation, you'll pick French or English. You may switch from speaking one official language to another without changing anything. And when you're not speaking, your microphone should be on mute. With us today by video conference are the following witnesses: Tara Tutu, the CEO of Arctic Buying Company, Kivalik Inc., Frank Sirachi, the president and CEO of FJJ GrowTech, and Todd Naden, the owner and manager of Fresh Market Foods. Thank you for joining our committee. And we have 6 minutes from each of our witnesses, beginning with Tara Tutu. Please go ahead for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much for inviting me today. I believe my statement that I wish to just present is the fact that there is still much work to do when it comes to food security in northern Manitoba, in northern Ontario, and definitely in Nunavut. And our passion is to try to work with the government agencies as a middle person who can hear what our customers are needing, frustrated about, as well as articulate it over to the INAN representatives who can make some of those changes and or can take the changes up. I think it's very important that food security is not just about how much food can get to a community, but how when the food can get there, how it can actually be packaged to get there. There's still lots of challenges when it comes to weather. There's still lots of challenges when it comes to what items are being subsidized. And certainly there are some items that are very culturally needed because it's been part of the established cultural needs for years that are not being considered within the program. And I know that there are dietitians that are in Ottawa that make all these decisions about what's healthy and what's not. But given the fact that Canada and many other countries have suffered a great deal of mental health issues the last year, I feel that including some items that are very culturally needed should be within the Food and the Nutrition North program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to Mr. Sirachi for 6 minutes, up to 6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Sirachi. I'm President and CEO of FJJ GrowTech. It is my pleasure, on behalf of our partners, Dynamic Hybrid Technologies and Canadore College, to present our solution to improving access and affordability of fresh produce to our Indigenous communities in the far north. The issue of food security continues to prohibit our communities to secure fresh produce. The effect of the dietary deficiencies increase the levels of obesity, diabetes, and other illnesses that impact the well-being of our Indigenous populations. To resolve these issues, our federal government commits generous financial resources to offset the shipping costs of it to increase access and food affordability. Unfortunately, with the rising costs of transportation and lack of food handling infrastructure in the north, we continue with the problems of securing supply of affordable fresh produce. Our solution is based on a three-way alliance between the federal government, the private sector, and the Indigenous communities. In a joint effort, we can implement our GrowTech units to develop an indoor cultivation sector to grow fresh produce within these communities. As a result, we stimulate job creation and economic opportunities within these regions. Utilizing our innovative technology, we aim to achieve two primary objectives. First, minimize federal subsidies, and secondly, enable communities to grow fresh produce locally at commercial volumes to meet community demands. Our solution model is based on sustainable principles generated from science, best business practices, community preparedness, and a high regard to minimize any impact to the environment. The GrowTech strategy provides a turnkey program for a commercial-sized indoor grow unit that withstands the harsh climate and extends the short growing season to a full 365-day operation. These units consist of an indoor growing facility powered by renewable energy engineered to reduce dependency on the community's electrical grid system. The strategy also includes an educational component hosted by Canadore College to develop the skilled capacity to manage these units and take advantage of potential business opportunities. For example, a 6,000 square foot indoor grow unit placed in a community can produce up to 30,000 heads of romaine lettuce annually. The average cost to produce romaine lettuce in these units is approximately $1.50 per head. In comparison, this is much lower than the imported lettuce that sells for upwards of $7. The flexibility of the unit allows cultivation for broader varieties of fresh produce to meet community preferences. Our technology uses hydroponics within a controlled growing environment with wall systems that provide R55 insulation and an interior membrane resistant to mold and mildew. The exterior consists of few solar panels that are part of the actual building's infrastructure. Our GrowTech units are scalable and available in much larger sizes. Renewable energy is generated using solar panels. During the winter months, when sun exposure is at its minimum, a 10 kilowatt wind turbine is used to augment the power requirements. Additional energy security includes battery storage to ensure 3 to 5 days of full autonomy. We have introduced our technology to members of Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada. Upon review, the ministry has suggested that we solicit the interest of Indigenous communities to participate in a proof of concept initiative. To date, we have secured interest of 5 communities: Big Trout Lake First Nations in Ontario, Lac Seul First Nations in Ontario, Whitefish First Nations in Alberta, and 2 communities, one from BC and one from the Northwest Territories. We continue to discuss our next steps with representatives from the Departments of Indigenous Services, Agriculture, and Agri-Food Canada to implement our strategy as a means to stimulate economic growth in the Indigenous communities while addressing the issues of food security. The cost for this proof of concept project includes the installation of a 6,000 square foot GrowTech unit in each of the communities. In addition, educational allowances have been included for 25 students, 5 from each community, to attend Canadore's 12-month training curriculum. The estimated cost of the project is $1.7 million for each of the 5 projects. Regarding the environmental benefits of our technology, the units will offset approximately 11,500 tons of greenhouse gases over the 25-year cycle of the 5 units. The carbon credit value monetized over this term generates revenue of over $1.8 million. To assist the communities in managing these cultivation projects, we have assembled a number of companies prepared to mentor and, wherever possible, enter into a partnership to expand the commercialized enterprise. In addition, we have secured private financiers to underwrite these projects and assist the communities to commercialize production. It is our hope that we have sparked your interest to apply our transformational technology to resolving the problems of food security in the North and minimize the federal government's obligation to continued subsidies to this issue. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, and well within our 6 minutes. Thank you. And so to conclude from the witnesses, we have Todd Nadon, the owner and manager of Fresh Market Foods. Todd, please go ahead, 6 minutes.
So hello, everyone. Hello, Mr. Chair. I just want to extend my appreciation for allowing Fresh Market Foods to participate in this study. My name is Todd Nadon, and my partner Tracy Bullock and I are owners of Fresh Market Foods. We are a medium-sized, full-service grocery store located in Sioux Lookout, Ontario. Before I get much into it, I just want to start off by conveying my gratitude and admiration. We have worked with an amazing amount of people in First Nation communities that have put in selfless efforts to organize and provide to the needs of their people. To that end, I respect all essential workers helping Canadians today. Fresh Market Foods is part of a vast network of services that are provided to 29 remote communities up north. Though we have always provided grocery services, we have only had the privilege of being approved as a southern supplier for Nutrition North for the past 2.5 years. We knew right away when we started, we would have to listen, be flexible, understand how we could best help our customers buy high quality, nutritious food, continue to develop better and more efficient services, be a partner and aid in communities developing their own means of supporting food security, be responsible and sustainable to our environment, and build partnerships to help us move product, educate, and give feedback. One thing about the program, it's continuing to change our business, and for the better, and the great part is, it's driven by our customers. Our first step in the journey was to hire a team to manage the program. It was important to us that our customers had someone they could contact should they have questions and help them better understand how our programs work. We also wanted someone to oversee that quality met our standards and ensure orders were processed accurately. Next, we worked with a technology company that integrated invoices into our point of sale system that were transparent, accurate, and simple to understand. We built partnerships with different airlines so that we could use our buying power to get preferred freight rates and extend those discounts to our customers. To help ensure we were able to fill orders quickly, we changed our production systems in the store. We installed machinery in our bakeries so we could bake all our own breads and rolls on site, and we trained a 24-hour production crew. We have also applied and received a license through the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs and did an extensive renovation on the store, so now we can process all our meats right on site. We have a proactive tracking system and good communication with our shippers so that if orders are not able to ship because of delays like poor weather, we can pull fresh product out of the order, sell it through our retail network, and replenish the order when it's ready to go. We endeavor to continue to evolve our business to provide fresh product and increase availability. We are in talks with 3 companies that are building a business plan around growing facilities for more local produce. Ribbit, out of Southern Ontario, has initiated a partnership in which we will be testing the potential of autonomous airplanes and the distribution of foods to the north. We're working with a tech company in the development of an e-commerce site that is customized to not only give full access to our products available, but it will provide information on nutrition value and attach the subsidy levels to each of these products. By the fall of 2022, we are hoping to finish an application to be able to cut and process traditional meats right here in our facility. We have set up partnerships with different area management boards to create training opportunities and facilitate on-the-job experience in relation to the courses they are trying to teach. We have worked with the culinary program in regards to basic meat cutting and baking skills. They have also spent time in our produce and deli departments to learn proper meal preparation. We've had the privilege of working with our community partners on infrastructure projects in which communities are initiating the ideas around producing their own meats and their own baked goods. One community has drawings of a whole new facility that would see them butchering their own meats, baking their own breads. A lot of the work behind this project would also see them build capacity. Fresh Market Foods understands there's concern about climate change and the impact it is having. We are working on being a more sustainable business. Our facility is now heated and cooled with geothermal energy. We are making serious financial investments into machinery and lighting that is more energy efficient. We are working with our wholesaler to recycle all cardboard and plastics that are brought into our facility. By processing our own products on site and increasing capacity, we're reducing our reliance on trucking. For instance, we have the ability to bake our own bread. We can bring in a load of dry ingredients once a month, whereas before we relied on a truck to bring them baking products 3 days a week. We have a coordinator on site to work with airlines to maximize payload on the airplanes. Instead of sending everything through cargo, we have a chart that lets us know the allowable limits on the airplanes and what types of airplanes are available in the fleet. If it is warranted, or if there's enough freight going to a single community, we will charter a whole plane just for that load of groceries. The program is infectious. It has created some great initiatives within communities themselves. We have witnessed coordination between different departments and finding ways to utilize the programs. Health departments working with education departments to create nutritious meal choices and create educational videos to learn how to cook. We are also working with the Northern Ontario Fruits and Vegetables in a coordinated effort to provide healthy fruit and vegetables to 12 schools on a weekly basis. In an educational nutritional effort to expose them to peak seasonal produce whenever possible. We feel there's an opportunity to create more awareness around the program. We have worked extensively through our channels, such as talking with key people and using platforms like social media. But every day we are meeting people who are being exposed to the program for the first time. Fresh Market Foods recognizes that there are huge areas of improvements within our own operation that would see us deliver products faster and at a better cost. However, the barriers financially are years away from us being able to achieve. To close, I want to convey what a wonderful experience it has been in dealing with our partner communities in the North. And to this committee, I hope my thoughts reflect the spirit of Nutrition North, as my team and I are truly inspired by the efforts taken, and we're so proud to be a part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to all our witnesses for their presentations. We will have time for each of the parties to have a 6-minute question period. Mr. Mulilo, Mr. Pawlowski, Madam Berube, Ms. Blaney, starting with Eric. 6 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I just want to extend my appreciation to all of the witnesses who are taking the time to join us today. I know we could probably talk with each one of you for an entire week on a lot of these issues, so I'll try to ask as many questions as I can, and I would like to start with Todd and Sioux Lookout. Todd, I know we've had a number of conversations about food security, about Nutrition North, and frankly, some of the really good work you're doing, I think, to go above and beyond what is required in terms of showing transparency and building a very strong relationship with consumers. I don't think it's a secret that there are many people out there who have distrust with the Nutrition North program, and I applaud the work that you're doing to rectify some of that. So I'm just wondering if you can speak to a bit more of some of the ways that you've been able to show that transparency, and really just speak about that a bit more, because I think it's something that can be replicated more broadly right across the board.
Thank you so much for the question. So I think probably where our biggest investment in creating transparency was definitely in the technology part of the business, and it's something that we continue to try to evolve. I think probably the enormous challenge of identifying each product in the store that we have, attaching and associating a weight with each one of those products, which is not conventional for a grocery store or any type of operation that I've run in the past. And then we need to attach a subsidy level to each types of products in the store. Then we need to attach that to a community, and then it needs to be attached to an airline. So you can see sort of the overwhelming process that goes on in trying to come up with a subsidy and a total to send up north. And so, one of the things that's been great is we've found companies that were willing to work with us from a development side, as opposed to just buying something out of a box. And the great part about it is, because we've created that partnership, we have the ability to continue to evolve this program, and whatever recommendations come from committees like this, whatever feedback we get from our customers, they've been so great in working with us and changing the program so that it makes sense. And we've made so many changes to it in the short 2.5 years. I don't know what the future is going to look like for that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. I appreciate those comments. And, you kind of mentioned the overwhelming process, and that, that makes me think of a lot of the, I'll say, administrative strains that the program puts on, some of the bureaucracy, if I could use that term. I know, again, we've spoke before about some of the challenges it poses for a number of different retailers, and maybe actually being able to access the program. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about that as well. What are some of those challenges from an administrative point of view that we might be able to remedy in some of the recommendations we put forward?
Mm-hmm. When I look at the aspects of the program, and I guess the question is, are there inefficiencies? Are there things within the program that are redundant? And I think that it's important when we're dealing with this. And when I did my opening remarks, I used the word privileged, and we're extremely privileged to be able to offer this to the North. And so when it comes to transparency and accountability, I think those aspects are a part of that program. And so to take them away would, I think, make it take away that transparency and accountability. So it's really important for us that we find solutions within the business environment that help us administer that. And like I said, when we work with these technology companies, we are finding solutions. We are finding better ways. I think maybe when it comes down to what is the best solution moving forward, we do this kind of work within our grocery stores. We have working groups, or we have the ability to sort of reach out to people, maybe like Tara, maybe she has some of the same issues that we have, and be able to discuss some of those ideas and some of those best practices. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is to be able to provide fresh, healthy food at the best cost up north. And, if we can all work together in achieving that goal, competition or not, I think it's probably something that reaches our end goal.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, Tara, if you do have a couple comments you want to make on that, and then I'd like to get to Frank if I have the time.
1 minute.
Well, I'll try to make it very brief. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of challenges. I think to be a part of the program is a privilege, but it's also an expense. And with all the requirements on the reporting that is required and the thousands and thousands of items that you can possibly pull from, a part of the system is set up to fail because we do not have those UPC codes that are accepted. We don't have the weights, and we certainly don't have the information to just sort of plug away and start running. It's a lot of manual labor. It's a lot of mistakes. It's a lot of trials. So there's changes that need to happen.
20 seconds.
Great. Frank, I'll hopefully we have a bit of time for the discussion here, but I'll just ask quickly. We've had great conversations as well with a lot of the work you're doing in my riding. One of the things you mentioned, if I recall correctly, was potentially reimagining some of these subsidies to support projects like you are doing. I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit more, and what kind of support we might be able to.
Well,
we're over time there, so I guess
hold that thought, and we'll go to Mr. Pulowski for 6 minutes, and perhaps we'll be able to conclude. Marcus,
no problem, Eric, because I'm going to keep going where you were going. I think with Mr. Sirachi or Sirasi. Sirachi. So yeah, I thought so. I agree with you. I think the greenhouses are a big part of the solution to the problem of providing affordable nutrition to northern communities. Now, you mentioned in your presentation that the cost, I believe, of each of the greenhouses was $1.7 million, and you've already secured private financing for this. Now, why are these private companies that are willing to finance this? And given it's a turnkey operation, what is in it for them financially? And in answering, maybe if you want to mention some of the companies, because I'm trying to figure out how this would work. Because I think it sounds like a great idea, but I'm just wondering how the finances are going to work.
Well, first of all, they're not greenhouses. It's almost the opposite of a greenhouse. These are not made out of glass. They're large-scaled walls that are insulated and encrusted with solar panels. So it's totally dark. There's no sunlight coming in. So we're looking at this project as a P3 partnership. So Brevet and some of these Camcord and some of these other companies that are coming forward would look at this and saying, okay, we would finance these projects, but we would also secure the operational requirements for the long term as part of their P3 application or P3 requirements to ensure that these projects are profitable, that these projects meet all the requirements as we initially stated on the onset of launching these units. So that, for what's in it for them, there's an opportunity where they can provide financing for the initial capital. There's ongoing working capital requirements. There's commercialization, because we do have other large-scale companies willing to come in and create, what's the best word for it, but create an economy up there. I mean, having fresh tomatoes is great, but they last longer if they're frozen or canned. And much like we all go to the grocery store and we buy tomatoes for our spaghetti sauces or our pizzas or whatever. We're looking at that kind of an application where they can grow the foods right in their areas and start developing a commerce between communities in exchanging, buying or selling or whatever they want to do. and exchanging the foods so that they have access to these various fresh produces in whatever form they do come in. The key objective here is to start cutting out some of the costs that impact the high unaffordability of these produce to the First Nations up there. Transportation is expensive, so we're not going to do away with all of transportation because we can't cover all the food groups and all the requirements of the communities. But surely we can look at reducing 30 to 40% of the transportation subsidies for these communities.
So now it's planned as a turnkey operation, though, so that it eventually it's turned over to the First Nations community. And how are they going to finance that? Or are you looking or thinking of government?
There would be some government involvement or participation, either to securitize in case of default, but overall, as a P3, we're looking at operating these things and helping them to, in developing the capacity to manage this and make this a success. I mean, there's no value in having them fail. The communities, and that's why we're looking at the interest of 5 communities to do the proof of concept. We think we've addressed all of the issues, but certainly there's always something that we forget or something we have to do. So training, developing, helping other companies applying their know-how of how to commercialize and how to develop an economy is important for them.
Now, are there other places which have actually built these units, or are these new units that you've just or your companies have invented?
Well, we've invented the large-scale ones. You might have seen some of the shipping containers that have evolved up there. They're relatively small. They don't have the capacity to develop volumes to feed a community of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people like Big Trout Lake or Lac Seul. I mean, you need some large-scale units to develop those volumes of produce, and that's what we are. And there's nobody else that really does it like ours.
But have other countries done something similar? Like I'm thinking the Nordic countries or Russia, where they've done the same kind of hydroponics with artificial light?
I have not seen anything comparable to ours right now. Matter of fact, we have inquiries from overseas to bring our products or our units over there. I'm not aware of any.
Now, everything's going smoothly in terms of interacting with the government, because I think we had the ministers here and I was asking something about greenhouses and they were kind of saying, well, that's not really what we do. That's the Ministry of Agriculture. And I think I asked the Ministry of Agriculture and they said, no, that's Indigenous Affairs. Have you done better?
No, that's where we are today. So everybody's trying to figure out where the money's coming from, who takes responsibility. I mean, I can only go so far with the financing, but then, we've had initiatives offered to us that would pay a small portion of. We have to come together and understand what the First Nations are capable. I mean, somewhere down the road, 2-3 years down the road, they should be profitable and should be able to carry the load of the financial burden of the units if they're doing it properly. And that's why it's important that we get involved to make sure that they meet those requirements. Okay. We need some help.
Thanks very much. Madame Bérubé, s'il vous plaît, 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to thank the witnesses for taking part in the committee. I represent the territory of the Cree, Anishinaabe, and other First Nations in Quebec. My question for Mr. Nadeau: how did you change your business plan to meet the needs of communities?
When it comes down to how we were meeting their needs, it was really important for us to look at what types of skill levels we had in the business that could help us manufacture and process stuff right on site. And the reason that that's important is Sioux Lookout is located fairly remotely itself. It is a single lane highway between Thunder Bay and Kenora. There's lots of delays. Sometimes it's hard to get product there. And so when it came to how we had to change our business model, we really had to look at what does it take to be more consistent when people are ordering? Because there's a large expense already in shipping stuff up north. It's even harder if, only 80% of what they're ordering is showing up. So it was, we were fortunate when my wife and I bought the business. We had worked for a large multinational company for about 12 years. And so we had quite a few skills already in baking and meat cutting and things like that. And so it just became, now we need to change the business in a way that we can incorporate our skills into it. So that, like I said in my initial opening, we're not bringing up, baked goods 5 times a week. I think in some previous testimonies, there's been quite a bit of talk about English muffins, which come all the way from Vancouver. Having the ability to just produce them right on site was sort of an amazing concept. And so, it's been a long process. Over the 10 years, we probably spent 5 training, good bakers and meat cutters, and now we're into, processing our own meats. And so we can make stuff fairly quickly, and we can ship it quickly, and we can improve, sort of our consistency and how much shows up.
Pouvez-vous me dire quels sont vraiment les problèmes que vous avez?
Could you tell me what problems you've had to overcome and what problems you are encountering with your strategy?
So one thing that we do face in Sioux Lookout is there is quite a labor shortage. I think sort of the last job numbers I'd seen, there was over 200 job postings in Sioux Lookout that are looking for somebody to fill them. So when it comes to skilled labor, it is difficult to secure those positions. I think the one great thing about Nutrition North and sort of how we've changed the business structure that's sort of helped with that situation is, we've created jobs that are career jobs. People are actually gaining skills. When somebody comes into our business, they become a baker, they become a meat cutter. I mean, those are great jobs. And when we cut out the middleman, we can pay the extra wages to those people right there. And so, what we did was we just got really focused on retention. And I think that's something that has been very successful for us. It's something that we want to continue to evolve our business into, so that we're continuing to create, these skilled jobs that pay higher, have great benefits, and people stay with us for longer periods of time. Thank you.
Ma question va être à Monsieur Frank.
My question will be to Mr. Frank. You talked about processing technology. I would like to hear your suggestions on improving the gaps in food security. Do you have any proposals?
Our proposal really is two-pronged. We can take fresh produce and distribute them amongst the residents of communities, or we can process them and bring technology up there. And it's simplified technology because the distances and the capacity has to be trained, but we can do this over time. But really, when we had our First Nation chiefs come down and look at our demonstration units, these people had their imagination went far beyond what we had thought. They are capable of doing or incorporating technologies to train their people. And that's why the training curriculums are so important for these people to do their own processing, to do their own blast freezing, their own canning. And this is not big technology with big factories. This is maybe a 10,000 square foot building with a warehouse. So we're looking at this as an opportunity for them to control their own destinies in supporting their own businesses and creating the food security measures that they're lacking today.
Thanks, Mr. Strachey. That's our time. And Ms. Blaney, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses here today. I appreciate your testimony. If I could start with Mr. Naden and Ms. Tutu Fotheringham first. Some of the testimony that we've heard on Nutrition North is that similar to yours, there's some very high concerns about it. And some of those concerns are around transparency, which I think you've both spoken to, and around it not reflecting the needs. So folks that are low income get the same discounts as everybody else. And so it continues to perpetuate ongoing in food insecurity. So I'm just wondering if you could sort of respond to that and what you think about a system, a Nutrition North, that puts a little bit more power in the consumer's hands, and what you think that would look like.
I'll answer the question first. Thank you so much for the question. I agree wholeheartedly with the idea that, this program is only successful when consumers are involved. I think that it's a very important part of how we want to make this program work well for them. And so when it comes to the ability for consumers to have more say and more feedback into how the program is going to go forward, I don't have a solution for what that looks like, but I think that it is an important part of it. I think it's something as a private business, if we want to be successful in being a part of this, we don't have any other choice but to listen to what our customers need. And that's kind of where I've said, so much of what we're doing now is being driven by our customers. I think you're sorry, the former question.
I think you're answering it just talking about Nutrition North. The other part was around the income part. What we're hearing from multiple folks is that this is not a social program. It's not based on supporting people who are low income, making sure that they have more food security. So we've heard a lot about that ongoing food insecurity, the stress, and the impacts that it has. So I'm just wondering from your perspective, if that resonates.
One of the great parts, I guess, about it has its drawbacks and it has its good parts about being a grocery store that also services a community and also has sort of a dual purpose of shipping things up north. Is that our system is whatever price we're selling on the shelf within the store is the same price that we're shipping up north with, and the system doesn't have the capability of duplicating prices or changing them. And so at the end of the day, at least it keeps us sort of transparent and accountable to our customers that, what we're doing locally in the community is also what we're offering up north. And so, as far as having a system that can identify disparities and sort of adjust to that, I don't think I would have a solution. I would have to reflect on something like that.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to Mr. Sirachi. The first question that I have is you're talking about your idea, and then you talked about how you went to the ministry first, and the ministry encouraged you to talk to Indigenous communities. Could you tell us a little bit about what the consultation process is looking like? And you said 5 communities are interested. I'm wondering where those are at and how soon these will be set up.
So we've talked to the ministries, various ministries, Indigenous Affairs, Services, Agriculture, Agri-Food, all trying to figure out who has a play in this. Is it an agricultural play? Is it a First Nations play? Is whatever.
Yeah.
What we did is we let those people kind of sort it out, and we went right to the First Nations and had a consultation with the 5 groups that we've contacted and asked them of what their interest would be. And they came down to North Bay. We have a demonstration unit. They saw the vegetables being grown and how easy it is to process them. And, the process there is, this is what we want. This is what our community is always looking for in fresh produce. Basically, cucumbers, lettuce, tomatoes, some herbs. Those are the core staples, let's call them. And they're prepared to undertake these projects as long as they have a place for their community members to work and it's driven by them. And so that's a very interesting concept because that's exactly what they should be doing. Where we kind of stumble is now it's in the government's hands and into these various ministries, and they're all trying to determine who should participate financially, who should participate as a lead. And there, hence, is the blocking point right now.
So I'm curious about the impacts of climate change. We've heard again and again from testimony that the climate is changing rapidly and the impacts are felt most up there. I'm just wondering, with the facility that you've built, how will it adjust to climate change?
So basically, these units actually produce revenue from the carbon credits that they generate. I mean, basically, the 5 of those units reduce 11,500 tons of greenhouse gases, offsets 11,500 tons of greenhouse gases. If you sell those credits on the market as based on what the Canadian government specifies, that would generate about a $1.8 million revenue to the communities. So it's a revenue generator for just them operating on their reserves.
And that brings us to time. And witnesses, I want to thank you all for bringing your insights to our committee. This is one of the honors and pleasures of being in this kind of work, to meet people from all over the country who are doing amazing things and have real perceptions and passion for moving the country ahead. So thank you all for that. The evidence, the testimony will be captured by our analysts in our report. And so once again, thank you to everyone. Committee, we will meet on Thursday for 2 hours to discuss Bill C-15, an act respecting the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Mr. Vancouverton, can I have a motion to adjourn? The meeting is adjourned.